Sorry.
Hey, Robbie, can you grab those people? Thanks, Robbie. All right. Good evening. Good evening. There we go. So I'm Stacy Louie. I'm one of the organizers of the Silicon Valley Agile Leadership Network. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for coming. Louder? Is this loud enough? All right. Thanks, Randy. So my name is Stacy Louie. I'm one of the organizers of the Silicon Valley Agile Leadership Network. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so delighted that you're here. And the organizers who spent time putting this thing together are delighted that you're here as well. We're very excited. This is by far the largest meetup that we've had. I think the previous one we came in around 175, so we're definitely north of 210, I think, at this point. So we're excited about that. So before we begin with tonight's festivities and with Jeff Sutherland, a couple of things I'd like to do. First, Silicon Valley Agile Leadership Network. Just to give you a little background, we started back in where's Dennis? Dennis and Monica. Where are you guys at? There they are. There's Dennis in the back. They had an idea to start this meetup down here because quite frankly, they're tired of driving all the way up to San Francisco. And with that, Dave Chilcott said, you know, I think I'll help you guys out. Dave is the founder of the Bay ALN. And so he started one meeting. There's Dave in the back. Thank you, Dave. So we started this meetup, and we had maybe 15 people in the meetup. We met in some library, and that was back in 2011. Today, you know, maybe it's 20 months later. We're north of 1,000. We're about 1,050. So we've grown incredibly over the last several months, and thanks to the interest in the group and support of the community. So we're pretty delighted that you're here tonight. Some thank yous to some key folks who made tonight happen. First, PayPal. PayPal donated the space, so thank you, PayPal. And if PayPal people are here, if you could stand up. There's got to be a couple of them. There you go, thanks. Thank you so much for being here. And Solutions IQ, thank you to Solutions IQ, and Monica, I don't know if you, there you go. Do you want to say a few words now, or do you want to wait for announcements? Announcements? Okay. And then Scaled Agile. That's with Dean Leffingwell. Dean can't be here tonight, but he did help sponsor this event. And then we have Scrum Inc. And if those of you who know Scrum Inc., that's Jeff Sutherland's company. And they're here and in force, and they're supporting us as well. So thank you, Jeff, for being out here. We have Align Technologies. There's got to be there's Doug. Align Technologies. Now, Align Technologies. There's Doug back there, and Garth Andrews wasn't able to make it tonight, but they donated the wine for this evening. So thank you, Doug. Popular guy. And then Bratton's here. They help man the front. You probably met Mary. She's in the back. She's doing all the raffles, so she's coordinating that. So thank you, Bratton, for helping coordinate this as well as donate and sponsor. And then going on to tonight's events are a little bit different than our normal events. Tonight we have some Twitter feeds, and we have a Twitter master somewhere. Oh, Linda. So Linda, maybe you can touch on what we're doing with Twitter tonight.
Sure. Hi. So we have a very special prize that you can be qualified for by tweeting a takeaway from this evening to @JeffSutherland and include the hashtag ScrumFuture. And the special prize is actually a flight from San Jose over the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a special prize. And we have also posted just those Twitter, the @SV Agile is for this meetup, hashtag ScrumFuture, this meeting, and @JeffSutherland. So tweet away to share your insights and get some social chatter going on for this and what's promising to be a really great meetup.
Thank you, Linda. So this is really cool. The flight is for 2, so you get 2 people in the plane, and Sing, where's Sing? Your pilot, there he is. Sing's gonna be flying the plane for you, and he'll be taking you wherever you want to go in the Bay Area. It'll be a lot of fun. Maybe Fairlawn Island, I don't know where you're gonna take him, but it'll be a lot of fun. So it's a great date night. Joel. It will be at Hash. What's that? What's mine? Oh, ours is SB Agile.
That SB Agile is for the meetup group. The event is Hash Scrum Future. Jeff Sutherland is at Jeff Sutherland.
You gotta speak much louder.
Please point this way. So the hashtag for the group is at SB Agile. The event is hashtag Scrum Future, one word. And Jeff's is at Jeff Sutherland. Did you get all that? Yeah, we got it here and also back there. Also, if you need Wi-Fi, eBay guest, and password is buy it now. Sentence.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, so a couple of other things, other raffles that we've got going tonight. We do have a CSM being given away tonight, and I think that went on the raffle. If there's a raffle ticket, Mary, hopefully you signed up with Mary. She's got these little yellow raffle tickets. You just put your name on it, and she'll throw your name in, and then Jeff's going to pick a winner, and then that person will have a free CSM. And Doug.
Alliance Technologies is also giving away a seat for a Leading Safe class.
So there's a Leading Safe class. And can we use that same, we'll use the same raffle to give that away too?
Yeah, we'll just try.
Excellent. We'll do that at the end of the evening. Okay, so please stick around for that. So 2 classes, one is Leading Safe and the other is a CSM. Let's see what else. Rhodey, we're going to have a return on investment retrospective. You'll see it on the wall right behind Dennis and Doug. And Dave's going to lead us through that at the end of the evening, so we'll get a chance to retrospect on tonight's events. And 2 more things. We have a jobs and announcements board. So if you have a job out there, or if you're looking for a job, in the very back, by Dave Chocott, wave your arms, Dave. There should be a board out there. It says jobs and announcements. If you have a job, please post it up there. And if you have an announcement, maybe there's an event, a class, a webinar, whatever, you want to post it on there so that everybody can see it. And in the evening, people will take pictures of it. We'll try to post it. We will post it on the meetup site so you can have that, but we'll make that available too. Okay. And then free stuff. Well, actually, yeah, let me go on free stuff and then one more raffle. In the back, you probably saw something like this, maybe. This is the Scaled Agile Framework big picture on a little card here. It's got the big picture and safe implementation. I'm going to cover this just for 2 milliseconds at the end of the evening because there's an announcement around this. Okay, so Dean asked if we could announce it on his behalf. So this is a big news. This is maybe beating out Agile 2013 a little bit. So there's this. So please pick one up. There's a Scrum guide in the back. And some of you guys will say, wow, the Scrum guide, that's been around since 2011. Great, I already have a copy. Well, there's something special about this particular Scrum guide. So if you don't have one, feel free to pick one up, and we're going to cover that in announcements at the very end, because there'll be a little bit of a special announcement. Maybe Jeff can beat me to it and cover some of the things that we're going to talk about. And again, this is going to be announced maybe at the end of the month, more formally, but you guys will get first-hand news on that. Let's see. Oh, other stuff. Our sponsor, Solutions IQ, they gave us some free notebooks. Grab a free notebook. Sharpie, it's all yours. And last but not least, Scrum Inc. did leave this webinars. They left this webinars sheet in the back, so grab one if you want to listen to some of the exciting events that Jeff's going to be talking to. So grab that. And let's see if there's anything that I missed. Bratton is giving, they have a discount for CSM, so grab that, take a look at that, and I think I'm almost done with the commercials except for Jeff McKenna, last thing. Show you this book. It's called The Human Side of Agile. Anybody hear this book, Human Side of Agile? Yeah? Pretty good stuff? This is, and I've mentioned to Jeff, a better name for this could be the the Agile Leader's Guide to Servant Leadership. That's what this book should be named. It's a great book. If you've not read it, I'd encourage you to pick up a copy, take a look at it. And there is a raffle for that. I think Jeff's heading that up. So give him $5 and he's going to give you a raffle ticket for you to win. How many copies do we have?
One every 7 tickets.
1 in every 7 tickets will win one. So, all right. Anything else that I missed? We all good? All right. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff and do a little switch here on the AV. Okay, be good to go.
Sounds like my mic is working, so that's good. Let's see if we can get my computer running on board here. Okay, so my computer's working. Still. Okay, let's see this get. Make sure you're buried here. Yeah, okay. So we're going to be talking about Scrum, the future of work. I'd like to thank Stacy and his organizers for setting this up. This event was not a foregone conclusion. It took a lot of work on Stacy's part. I'd also like to mention that I have 2 coaches who work very closely with Scrum Inc. in the back. Jeff McKenna, who's referencing the book, it was the first Scrum coach. He helped me set up the first Scrum team, and so without him, Scrum wouldn't exist. Also, in recent years, I've been working closely with Scott Downey. We've written a number of papers. We've done a lot of co-training together. He's one of the best coaches on the West Coast. I'll be mentioning him in the presentation. Also, I should mention I work with, I'm an Agile coach to a lot of startups. Venture capital group I'm working with has over 30 companies we're invested in doing Scrum. And even beyond that, I work with a bunch of small companies. One of them is called Modit. They have a gaming platform that's really good for whatever you want to put on any platform in HTML5. So they have a development environment hosted on the web. They're really interesting to me because the founders started their first Scrum company a little over 2 years ago and cashed out in less than 2 years using Scrum. And so now they've been working away in this new company. They don't really need any money because they have plenty of money from the previous company, building out an even bigger gaming platform. So it's great for advertising, it's great for IT to put some really cool interface on their old, nasty platforms. And the ultimate goal is to get everybody to be able to build games and modify games, even end users with the platform. This year there's been a real significant transition. Last July at this time, if you went to simplyhired.com, you saw 20,000 jobs that were Scrum related. This year, it was all the way up to 670,000 in May. If you look at it today, it's down and it's hovering around 600,000. So why did the number of Scrum jobs go hyperproductive? 30x in 1 year, okay? There's some significant things happening in the market. Work is changing. You know, I've thought a lot about why is that, and one way to think about it is the way this company was founded. It was founded on some basic principles that had to do with making people's life better, by empowering them, and by giving them certain rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, basic rights. If you look at traditional work, you find out that most of the workers are not happy, and they're looking for a new job. And a recent a study out of the London Economic Institute found that paid work is ranked the lowest of any activity that people do except being sick in bed. The only thing that people on the average like worse than work is being sick in bed. So work clearly sucks. It's a miserable existence for most of the people in the world. And particularly software development really sucks. And back at Easel Corporation in 1993, I was looking at this. We had a team, and at the time I was working for a nonprofit in my spare time called Axion. Axion is the leading micro-enterprise lending operation in the Western Hemisphere. And it's modeled on the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, who won the Nobel Prize for giving small loans to really poor people. And as I worked with the president of Axion, working mainly in Latin America and South America, I found that they could take people who couldn't even feed their children. They could get them together in a group, work with them so that each person in the group developed a little business plan. And when everyone had a plan, then they would give each person like $25 as a loan, not as a gift. And they would go out, and maybe a woman would buy a sewing machine, start a sewing business. Someone might buy a fruit cart, sell fruit in the town square. And within a few weeks, all of a sudden they had enough to feed the kids. Once they had enough to feed the kids, they started having enough to buy them clothes. And when they could start buying them clothes, they could send them to school. And once they got the kids in school, all of a sudden they're building a new house. And all this could happen in less than a year. And during the daytime, I'm going into work at Easel with a software team, and I said, you guys, you've always been late in your projects. The software's never been good enough. Management has always said, you never deliver what we want. You never deliver it on time. You've been doing that, most of you, for 5 or 10 years. Do you want to spend the rest of your life like that? And they said, no, what can we do? And I said, well, I have an idea that I learned from the Grameen Bank. And that you get a group of people that have no money, but you have no good software. You get a group of people that have no good software. You get them together, they come up with a little business plan. You invest in a little bit what they do, and they go out and they iterate on that, and pretty soon they have better software, and pretty soon they have more software. And I said, I think in 6 months we could have so much good software, the management would be telling us to slow down. The sales guys would be saying, it's like drinking from a fire hose, we can't take too much. How would you like to do that? And they said, yes, we want to do that. So we started then to put together what became Scrum. Now, the interesting thing about this, I'm going to talk about Lean shortly, but Scrumming is working with the Lean Enterprise Institute. And the IT expert, the Lean Enterprise Institute, is recently in Uganda, and what is he doing? He's training the Grameen Bank how to implement Scrum. So here we are, 20 years later, we got the idea from these guys, and now they're thanking me for giving it back. So this has been these kind of things are one of the great things about Scrum. So we started by, how do we bootstrap people out of poverty? Not enough software. As we began working that out in Easel, I would come home and I would talk to my wife. She was a Unitarian Universalist minister, and she had all kinds of problems in church. And I'd say, well, that problem you're having, it sounds like you don't have a product backlog. What's your product backlog? And she'd talk about it. I said, I don't think you have any business objectives. What are the business objectives? So she went to the whole board and she said, why are we in business? And they spent a whole board meeting figuring that out. And they said, we want to deepen the spirituality of the congregation, we want to grow in membership, and we want to stabilize our finances. That is the goal for this year. So my wife put together, it turns out that the minister is the natural product owner in a church. She puts together a backlog of things to do to achieve those objectives. And I said, at the top of your list of stuff that you need to do, 100% of today is maintenance. You've got to get beyond that. Get it ordered, and in the top 20%, put in these initiatives that are going to meet the church's objectives. So she started implementing Scrum in church, and she began going around almost like a change agent in churches. She implemented Scrum in 5 or 6 churches. As she's doing this, a venture capitalist wants to talk to me, and we start discussing Scrum, and he says, you know, we really need to implement this in the companies we're investing in. And as they started to do that, they noticed immediately, Scrum works for everything. It's not just for software development. How do we move it across the company? We need to start coaching the senior management how to implement Scrum everywhere. Sales, marketing, finance. How about running the senior management team as a Scrum? And so we took that church model and we started implementing it in venture companies. How do you put the organization on a release plan? Every quarter, this is going to be a better company. What are the new features? Let's get them at the top of the list of things to do and start burning down that backlog. Now, as we did that, the head of the VC firm said, Scrum doubles everything. It doesn't matter what you're doing, it will double the production. And so he said, we're going to implement Scrum everywhere in the venture group. And so every single person's on a Scrum team. They do weekly sprints. And after they'd done several months of weekly sprints with 6 or 7 teams, they had almost 100 sprints under their belt. They did an analysis. And what they found was the teams that were working in the traditional way, long hours, late nights, and weekends, were actually slower than the teams doing Scrum well, working less than 40 hours a week. And in fact, the teams that worked less hours had double the productivity of the teams working long hours. So the head of the venture group pulled everybody together and he said, we're going to stop this long hours, no more night work, no more weekend work, you're not getting any pats on the back for doing that anymore, and we're going to double the productivity of every team in the company. What do you think happened? Well, they had one team that did it, the finance and administration group. And after a sprint or two, they said, you guys just don't know how to do Scrum, we're splitting you up and putting you on fast teams. So within a couple of weeks, all teams had double productivity, and they went on to triple it. There's a paper written on this, how they did it, and that you can look at yourself. So even the VCs would say, I'm feeling guilty. I'm with my family on the weekends. Scrum is giving me back a life. There must be something wrong. I'm not working hard enough. And they would have me come in and do retrospectives with the team to see if they had really doubled productivity. And we couldn't find a team that hadn't. So basically, Scrum gives people back a life. How many people have got their life back with Scrum? There's got to be a few of you in here that feel that way. I know. All over the world, people tell me that. Now, one of the things we've been working with a lot in the last year is the happiness metric. I found going around the world that there were certain companies that found that the happiness people produce more revenue. In fact, happiness is a better leading indicator of revenue than most of the financial metrics your chief financial officer has. They're all indicators of past performance, not indicators of what's going to happen in the future. So we began implementing the happiness metric. And as we began doing this, we started looking at all the research on happiness. And it turns out that for a couple of years, the most popular course at Harvard University was a course on happiness. And it was led by Professor Ben Shahar, who wrote a book called Happier. In the book, he had this chart, which really helped me understand software development. Because he said, you know, in order to be happy, you have to act in a way that makes you happy today, and do it in a way that's going to make you happy tomorrow. That's the upper right quadrant. But most people are not there. They start off down in the lower right, the hedonists. You know, we're going to hack today and let tomorrow take care of itself. Okay? So that's the way it goes. That's what happens here in the valley in all the garages. Okay? We're going to hack today and they will come tomorrow, right? But then the company starts growing and you get some investment. And the VCs comes in there and this is total chaos. We got to get some management in here in the company. They started to bring in some management to get it under control. And pretty soon you've got a bunch of bureaucracy. And that develops a lot of nihilism in your company. You know, this company sucked yesterday, it sucks today, and no matter what you do, Mrs. Scrum Master, it will suck tomorrow. Does anybody have anybody of those people on the team? Every Scrum team has one of them, right? So now you start building up all these nihilists, and things start to really slow down. You know, did that happen here at PayPal? I bet it did. So now you have to bring in the people in the rat race category. That's probably many of you in here, okay? You're going to work really hard today in order to get promoted, so then you'll be happy. But then you get promoted. Now you have even bigger headaches. You got to even work even harder. So the rat race people are brought in because the nihilists can't produce anything. So we've got to have a bunch of project managers to crack the whip. Okay? That's why all of you were brought in. But still, nobody's happy. Okay? Well, Scrum is a way to push all of you around into that upper quadrant. We'll talk a little more about that later. Now, there has been a great transition, particularly this year in Scrum. It's become, Scrum is going to be about 10% of the total new job openings in the United States shortly. Okay, so it's huge. But along with that has come some interesting problems. You know, this is data from Jim Johnson, the CEO of the Standish Group. He and I have started working together a little bit. And what he did is he took he had about 100,000 projects in his database. And he took them all for about the last decade, 2002 to 2010. He split them into traditional projects and agile projects. And what he found was traditional projects have a 14% success rate. No surprise to any of you who have done a lot of waterfall projects. You know, the rest of them are all either late or over budget or total failures. And to his surprise, the agile success rate was 3 times as great. And in his point of view, that was enough so that you should abandon waterfall. Anything that's going to be 3 times better, you need to abandon. But that leaves 58% of agile teams out there that can't deliver a project on time, or maybe can't deliver it at all. That's bad agile. We got a lot of bad agile out there. And the people in this room, it's our responsibility to fix that. So we want to talk about that a little bit. So in order to fix that, before I go into some of the details, in Scrum, all projects should be early. We train our product owners to get on the value curve. And when they get 20% of the features done, they've got 80% of the value, ship it. Stop messing around. You should always ship early, because as soon as you ship, the customer's going to change their mind. 65% of that stuff you know they're never going to use anyway. So if you ship it at 20%, then the customers can change their mind, reorganize the backlog, and you get on another value curve. And you ride that to 80% and ship the next release, you get them on another value curve. And you do as many as you can before the money runs out. And if you do that, you will always be early, and you will always deliver at least twice as much value as a traditional project. A good product owner does that, and if they don't do that, they're a bad product owner implementing bad Agile. Okay? So all projects should always be early with a well-implemented Scrum. Now, when I got together with the team to set up the Scrum, I had all this experience with the microenterprise. I also had a lot of experience here in Silicon Valley. For 15 years, I worked with a nonprofit in Palo Alto on how to build teams to do public service. And the leadership of that organization was mostly entrepreneurs who had cashed out. You know, they're under 35 years old, they've already got more money than they can ever spend. What are they going to do with the rest of their lives? Do we have any of those in here? Maybe we have some in here, running around training people in Scrum. So they brought all that experience in startups, how you build empowered teams, how you built that team spirit, and put it into volunteer projects. And I spent 15 years working with them, helping with that, learning how to do it. So we got into Easel, we're trying to figure this out. We're trying to look for a standard model. Like Easel was the first 4GL language company, and we had thousands of customers all over the world, many big customers like Ford Motor, 1,000 IT workers. How would we frame a way of working that made sense to them? And we started researching. We studied 30 years of papers in the IBM Systems Journal on productivity and project management. We found in there that the IBMs said the surgical team was the best. We have one brilliant person writing every single line of code, and they're surrounded by experts, tool experts, language experts, documentation experts. So we thought, wow, can we implement that? The only problem with that was Ford Motor Company, they didn't have any surgeons. You know, they were kind of a typical IT group. So we said we can't implement that. So we kept on looking, and the paper that we found that was the best one was by two Japanese professors, Takeuchi and Naka, describing the best product development teams in the world. Mainly, there was two teams in the United States, one at HP, one at 3M, but the rest of them were Japanese, and mostly in manufacturing, particularly building cars. If you go back and read The Machine That Changed the World, it was written by the Lead Enterprise Institute, trying to identify why in the 1980s the Japanese were winning in the car business, you will see that Taiichi Ohno studied General Motors. He said all these specialists on the line are causing a lot of waste. In Japan, we're going to bring them all together as a cross-functional team. We're going to take the foreman at General Motors who tells people what to do. We're going to get rid of the foreman. In place, we'll have a team leader who helps the team, a servant leader that can actually do work with the team to fill in for them. And as soon as he got that working, he implemented continuous improvement. In my view, that is the first Scrum team that we were basing this whole model on. Scrum comes out of lean product development. We also had the benefit, though, as I had helped incubate a company called iRobot. And we learned how these intelligent robots operated on simple principles, simple rules, and caused self-organization and caused dramatic improvements in behavior and effectiveness. We also would use it when we were working with Smalltalk, and we studied what Alan Kay had done at Xerox PARC, which I'll mention in a moment. And another key factor, in fact, where we got the daily meeting in Scrum, came from research at Bell Labs. The first implementation of what became Scrum was based on Bell Labs and the MIP Media Lab. The sprint review is the demo or die right out of the Media Lab, because I had hired a lot of people out of the Media Lab in my previous experience. And on that basis, what Bell Labs was doing in the Media Lab, we then overlaid lean product development from Takeuchi and Naka. And that's what became Scrum. The robots were an implementation of complex adaptive systems. I had spent 11 years, maybe some of you don't know, my background is a career as a fighter pilot and then a career as a medical school professor. Nothing in IT. A large banking company came by, the medical school, and I was working on technology. Actually, I had the team that was the best in that technology in the middle of part of the United States. I was in Denver. And they said, hey, you know, you guys have all the smarts and none of the money, but over at the bank we have all the money and we don't know what we're doing. Why don't you come over and help us with our systems? And he made me an offer that my wife couldn't refuse. And I wound up with that. So I find, you know, they have hundreds of COBOL programmers. Any of you in the banking business in here? Yeah, do you still have COBOL programmers? I do a lot of training in Zurich. There's still thousands of COBOL programmers in Zurich. And their projects are still all late. The software really sucks. I said, and the fix for that was, let's have more reports and more meetings. And it didn't work. It actually just made things slower and made the customers scream even more. I said, you guys are crazy. What are you doing? I can't believe. It's all self-defeating, self-destructive behavior. So I went into the CEO, I ripped a chapter out of In Search of Excellence, which was popular at the time. I threw it on the CEO's desk and I said, okay, your division that is the worst division is the automated teller division. I want you to give me everybody in that division. Sales, marketing, support, engineering, systems. I will run them as one cross-functional team, and we will fix that. We will run a little company within a company, and you as the senior management can be my board of directors. I will report once a month with a profit and loss statement, and you can give me advice. And other than that, you stay out of my company. If you want to fix it, you'll do that. Otherwise, it will suck forever. The CEO came to me the next day and said, okay, Sutherland, you asked for this headache. You got it. And we began to implement, based on complex adaptive systems, what became a prototype of what a few years later Scrum. Now I mentioned Alan Kay. Alan Kay was really important to us, being Smalltalkers. Alan Kay invented Smalltalk. He was invited to MIT to give a presentation, get an award on being the Smalltalk inventor, and this was his first line. He said, my team at Xerox PARC in the 1980s invented the first personal workstation. We brought the mouse over from SRI and hooked it up to the workstation. The first implementation of Windows, the first laser printer, the Ethernet, the first widely deployed object-oriented language. And that's what Bill Gates and Steve Jobs based their whole companies on. And after he showed that slide, I felt kind of impressed because Alan didn't leave anything for the rest of us. But I listened to what he said on how he did that. And he said, you know, he said, most companies look at small incremental improvements. We could never have done any of that. We had to look at extreme cases, data points that were off the chart, data points that scientists usually throw away because they don't make sense. You have to look at the extreme case to make the extreme jump. So as we were going through the project management literature, that's all we were looking for, the extreme data point. What is out there so far, people say it's impossible. That is where we're going. That's what we learned from Alan. So when we got to the Japanese, particularly Professor Tanaka now is viewed as one of maybe the leading management guru on the planet. He replaced Peter Drucker, who died. He held his seat at Peter Drucker's university. But in the 1980s, he was not very well known, but he put together basically what is now Scrum. And he wrote this paper in the Harvard Business Review that had this chart. And the top of the chart, he said, is project management type A. He said, this is what we saw when we brought senior management teams from Japan to the United States, particularly at NASA. We brought Fuji Xerox senior management to NASA. They described how they built the space shuttle. Many years of requirements, handing off a big document, many years of analysis and design, handoffs of big documents and many years in each phase. He said, but what happened is Fuji Xerox went back and tried to implement the NASA style. They thought it was best practice, and they found it's an extremely high failure rate. Now, because the Japanese had been trained by Edwards Deming after World War II to do root cause analysis of failure, they did, and they found out that big documents and handing off between departments is the root cause of waterfall failures. So they banned big documents and they banned handoffs. So people had to work face to face. So they got this type B strategy, kind of a sashimi style project management, and all of a sudden the success rate went way up and the cycle time shortened. But what Takeuchi and Tanaka found were the best teams. In that first paper they wrote, later they wrote a lot about Toyota, but the first paper was Honda. They said the best teams, it's all at once. Let's get a prototype of the car out in a few weeks. Let's look at it, let's inspect and adapt, and let's repeatedly build prototypes until we get a great car. So everybody's working all at once, a little bit of analysis, design, coding, testing, implementation. And today, I'll mention, we're working with Solutions IQ and Joe Justice, who builds cars in weekly sprints. So today, you can build them even faster than Toyota. So if you look in the paper, well, first of all, they called type B and C, reminded Takeuchi Tanaka of rugby, the game of rugby, because people were so closely working together, and particularly the Scrum formation in rugby. So they said, we're going to call type B and C Scrum project management. That's where it comes from. Okay, does anybody not know that before? That's where Scrum comes from. Takeuchi Tanaka, type B and C project management, that's what it is. They described the teams in the paper, and they said the best teams all had these three characteristics. Transcendent goals. Tanaka wrote about the Toyota Prius group, how they got started. Management gave them challenging goals. We need a car that gets twice the mileage. We've got to make a greener planet. We've got to make the world a better place. And by the way, it needs to be shipped in half the time. And the team said, that's impossible by doing anything we've never done at Toyota. And so the management said, we'll try something different. So the challenging goals and putting it back on the team created an autonomous team. They had to figure it out. They had to decide what they were going to do. They had to decide how they were going to do it. And management said, call us if you need help. They actually did. They called it back and they said, we need 6 different electrical technologies we haven't had in the company. And management immediately went out and acquired 6 different electrical companies, integrated it within the company, and shipped it in 15 months, the new car. That's pretty good for acquisition. I guess Cisco could probably do that. I don't know. And the third thing is cross-fertilization. The team is a learning organization. That's what Takeuchi and Tanaka about. Learning organization through cross-fertilization of working together. Now recently, actually it's been a year and a half now, we started meeting with the Lean Enterprise Institute because we're in, my office is right across the street from the MIT Sloan Business School, and right next to the Sloan Business School is the Lean Enterprise Institute. So we were invited over there one day to talk about this Scrum thing. And so we went over there. I said, I scanned Takeuchi's book, Extreme Toyota, and I could not find the word lean in the book. In fact, Takeuchi and Tanaka, I've talked to them a lot now. They never mentioned the word lean. I think lean is this kind of Western thing. How come you guys are always talking about lean? You know, Womack wrote The Machine That Changed the World and Lean Thinking, which is one of the founding documents of lean. And they drew this yin-yang on the board. They said, Takeuchi and Tanaka are talking about knowledge generation on new product development. It's done by Scrum teams. If you look at them, they're lean product development. We're on the assembly line looking at the techniques where the Scrum teams build the cars. So these techniques we call lean. It's the same thing, trust us. So that's the difference between, what's the difference between Scrum and lean? If you're talking about new product development, there is no difference. And the CEO of the group gave me this book. He ran the first Toyota plant out where Tesla's building cars now in Fremont. And he said, this is the book on lean product development at Toyota. Take a look. The first chapter describes a Scrum team. The only thing that most of us don't do is set-based concurrent engineering. Apple does that well. The first Scrum team actually had a way of doing that, but most software teams don't do a good job of that. So, this background in Japanese manufacturing is really important to Scrum, and everything in Japanese manufacturing where they're implementing what we call lean is based on the PDCA cycle that Edward Deming taught them. Plan, do, check, act. So in Scrum we plan, release plan, sprint plan, we do the sprint, in the daily meetings we check and sprint review, and act in Deming's is the examination of the process and figuring out what process change to make and actually executing on that. And I pulled out a senior management presentation from Toyota, and where the senior management says, here's what we mean by plan. We mean avoiding worry, unreasonableness, arbitrary dates, unreasonable pressure on teams, causes emotional waste, and slows things down. That's unreasonable. If managers do that at Toyota, they're bad managers. Okay. Do means to avoid work, control inconsistencies. We want to smooth out the work. We don't want these spikes, these emergencies that are causing disruption. We want a really smooth flow of work. Check means to avoid mood or find wasted outcomes. Mary Poppins and I have done workshops in Europe and America, and we've never found a process efficiency for anything, any company, greater than 15%, unless they had a Lean Six Sigma initiative targeting something. So that means that virtually everything companies are doing, they have 85% waste minimum built into the system. This is a huge opportunity for all of us, because if you can identify that. Action indicates the will, motivation, determination of the management to fix this. So one of the biggest problems we have with bad Agile, we did a management workshop this morning, is the managers are asleep at the switch. At Toyota, that's a bad manager. If you're not executing this, they actually hold the managers accountable, and our investors do too. If our managers of our companies are not executing on this, knowing the velocity of the teams, identifying impediments, removing impediments, and that is noticed in a board meeting, that is a really difficult board meeting. We train the managers in lean, and we hold them accountable for executing lean. And what we know is it might be a little bit better in Silicon Valley than some other places, but you've got a lot of managers in the Valley that are not acting in this way. And a lot of it is just a lack of training. And their mind has been warped by waterfall. Okay? We have to kind of deprogram it. Microsoft has a 3,000-person Scrum. They've written about in Agile Software Engineering and Visual Studio. It really should be a book on how Microsoft does Scrum. And in there, they have Taiichi Ohno's taxonomy of waste. At the top is in-process inventory. I went into a company down the road a couple of years ago. They couldn't get the testing done inside the sprint. All the testing would slip to the next sprint. I said, you can't do that. That's in-process inventory. How many of you see testing slipping out of your sprints? Probably a few of you. So here's what you should recommend to the management. I said, okay. They said, we can't test in this group. We don't have enough testers. So I said, okay, here's how you find out why you don't have enough testers. You do a little bit of testing at code complete inside the sprint, and you do it in a way that you can compare it to testing later. And what I want you to tell me in the next sprint, if you do an hour of testing now in the sprint, how long does the same amount of testing take 3 weeks later? They came back at the end of the next sprint, and they said, wow, an hour now takes 24 hours of testing 3 weeks later. That means we need 24 times as many testers. Does that mean it'd take us 2 years to ship something we could ship in a month? I said, well, if you can multiply, that's what it means. To their credit, the management immediately pulled together the whole development organization. They said, okay, starting at 11 o'clock this morning, we just talked about this at 10:30. Starting at 11 o'clock this morning, nobody can move any sticky note on the Scrum board except the tester saying it's been tested. So, it's not that management doesn't know what to do when they have the information. It's just that they're not getting the information. As soon as they see what's going on, they act. So this is a way that we need to start to drive a, silver bullet into the bad Agile. We need to go after, we need to start going right down Taiichi Ohno's list, starting with in-process inventory. Teams that do not get to the end of the sprint where features done, tested, and bug-free, that is not lean product development. And that is a Scrum that's set up to fail. And many of you are coaches and Agile leaders, and you need to stand up and be confident on this issue. Otherwise, this bad Agile stuff is going to overwhelm us, okay, as we expand. So at the venture group, we start by focusing on done. And when we train the management in lean, we coach the teams, and within 2 or 3 sprints, they immediately double their velocity. As soon as they do that, they start sucking the backlog dry, and the backlog becomes a big problem. We know now, we have the best data in the world shows us that if you can then fix the backlog and get it really ready, you can get a second doubling. You're going 4x. I don't even have it on this chart, but the way we go to the next level has to do with the daily meetings and the retrospectives. We can take it to 8x. So this is the model that the investors use, and as soon as the team doubles velocity, they're after the senior management about why doesn't the revenue double. If the team's double output, revenue doubles. If that doesn't happen, bad management. It takes us only a few months to double velocity, and then it takes us 2 years to fix the management of the company, on the average. Because they're not clear about the business strategy, they're not clear about their objectives, they're not clear about their customers, they haven't segmented the market properly, they don't have their personas, they can't get a clean backlog. So that's harder to fix. What we're seeing is more and more that's the biggest problem that people have. Now today we know, thanks to Scott Downey, who's in the back of the room, and some people we work together in Europe, is that if you set up the team right, every team can go hyper productive. They can double their velocity in 3 sprints, and they can go 4x in 5, 6, or 7 sprints. Every time without exception. There is no team that can't do that if you set it up right with a good Scrum Master. We also know that the investors really put pressure on me. Jeff, you have to show people step by step exactly what they do, and particularly us on the board, exactly what the steps are to go high productive. It's not enough to just do a lot of hand waving. So we've done a lot of research to show them exactly what needs to happen to go high productive. Systematically, if you do X, Y, and Z, or X, every time. The problem is that people have a hard time doing this. And only a small percentage of teams achieve the design goal of Scrum, which is a totally productive product development team. That's the design goal, is to look like that. So, and I've noticed that Scrum Masters really struggle. You know, it's kind of hard to implement. And it's slow and it's painful. Whereas, I was talking with Jeff McKenna today, Scrum was fast, easy, and fun, right? We had more fun doing Scrum. Why is it that so many Scrum Masters, it's not fun? And so we try to identify where are the points of pain. And we didn't want to add it to the Scrum Guide, but I started working with the Scrum Patterns movement, which comes out of the original Hillside group, the software design patterns movement 20 years ago, and has a process for developing patterns at work. And I've just published a paper that will be presented at the Big Agile Conference next month on a small set of patterns, a pattern language, that will make every team at least double. And make it fast, easy, and fun for the Scrum Master, if you simply implement these patterns. It's all based on a pattern discovered at the venture group. After they had done hundreds of scrums, they analyzed all the data. They said, wow, the teams that improve the most are the ones that finish the sprint early with the software done, tested, and bug-free. In their case, it wasn't software, whatever they were doing. That is really counterintuitive, because investors, we want to jam a lot of the sprint, but that makes the team slow. So it's not about velocity, it's about acceleration. And velocity is not comparable across teams, but acceleration is. We can now evaluate all teams in acceleration. So teams that finish early accelerate faster. So the way in to solve this problem is to go after what are the things that make the teams not finish early. So we take the core Scrum and we start wrapping all these patterns around it. Okay, I want to spend just a couple minutes talking about a couple of them. Here are the ones in the paper. How do you get off to the right start? You've got to have stable teams. If you're changing the players all the time, they can't learn, they can't improve, they'll never go high productive. It's impossible. The next thing we find out is we come into sprint planning, it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's still not done. People are still confused, they're tired, they're depressed. We said, we can't invest in companies like that. This has got to be fixed. These guys need to come in at 9 o'clock in the morning. By 10:30, they need to be excited, rushing to the keyboard. What does it take to do that? Well, one thing for sure we can do is to get the backlog in a better ready state, but have the teams know what they can pull into a sprint. And the best estimate of what they can pull into a sprint and be successful is a pattern called yesterday's weather. Usually the average of the last 3 sprints velocity. And so people should come in, and in the first 60 seconds of sprint planning, they should decide, we're pulling 60 points. End of discussion on how much. Now let's just look at it and double check it. Okay? So in my company, that's kind of a company rule. You know, it's like standard engineering practices. Everybody uses yesterday's weather. We don't have time to mess around with trying to figure out stuff that break things. 4, daily clean code, that comes, we've already discussed that. If your testing spills over to the next sprint, you've got in-process inventory. If you can get that right just at the beginning, the next big thing that really cloggers people is you find out the development teams doing multiple things at once. And we know if people are working at multiple things at once, this is out of Jerry Weinberg's software management, quality software management. If people are working on 4 things at once, their production is cut by 60%. We have a simple exercise we do in training all the time. It always gives us the exact same number. If you give them 4 things to do, it's 60%. If you give them 5 things to do, it's 75%. So if a developer's working on that, okay, what's the root cause of that? I mean, when you trace that, I come in, how many of you here have people on teams working on multiple projects simultaneously? Most everybody. Is that because you want to waste 40 to 60% of the effort of the people? Well, then why are you doing it? Well, why? Why is that happening? Yeah.
So can I?
Yeah.
So what do you? How does that address the issue where you have you don't have cross-section workers who can do all the work? You have maybe a DBA that needs to do a little work, you know, and therefore you're sharing them, and they are context switching among teams. They really don't need to dedicate 100% of their effort to a team. They only need to spend a couple, 2-3 hours a week.
So what we did in my last company, I was CTO at a company called PageKeeper. We very quickly figured out that everybody on the team needs to do 80% of DBA's work, because if it's on the list of stuff to do and it's next, the next person that's available needs to do it. There's 20% that we need in DBA. So in this particular instance, we had a couple of DBAs as a support team. And their backlog was responding to requests from teams to do the 20% that they couldn't do themselves. For most sprints, we didn't need them at all. So we kind of built the cross-functionality into the teams. Here's a local company, Citrix Online. Maybe some of you have seen this paper. They took this at the enterprise level. When they started, it took them 5 to 10 months to get a release out. As they got more and more legacy code, it went up to 42 months. They got Ken Schwaber in there, he implemented Scrum. But they say, hey, Scrum at the team level is not enough. We need Scrum at the enterprise level. So they started an enterprise Scrum. And they prioritized all the projects in the company. They funded them from the top. They drove the top ones to done as fast as possible. By 2010, they were doing all their releases faster than the startup. Okay, so this points out that almost everything in Scrum is fractal in nature. So what goes on at the team level goes on at the multiple team level, goes on at the organizational level. And if you want to scale Scrum, you understand that fractal. You know, if you're starting off and you need some guidelines, SAFe may help you. But at the end of the day, you need to understand this fractal scalability of Scrum. And you need to do the kind of things that Citrix did. Here's another thing. The team gets going, they get people focused, they're swarming. People told me recently, hey, Google's not doing Scrum anymore. I said, what are they doing? They said, they have a backlog. If there's any impediment, it goes immediately to the top of the backlog. Whoever's available works off the top of the backlog. It doesn't matter if they know it or not. I said, I bet those teams are really fast, okay? They don't look like Scrum teams because they've transcended the practice. They've gone to extreme cross-functionality, extreme focus on impediments, and all of a sudden they look like, you know, an Aikido master. And patient keeper Ken Schwaber said, I don't know what those teams are doing, but they're eating their competitors for lunch. I never saw anything so fast. People were complaining they weren't doing Scrum. Here's the next thing where teams run into trouble. How many of you have done a sprint with no interruptions? Nobody. Every once in a while, people will say, I did one sprint once. That means you have to have a way to deal with interruptions. There was an article in the New York Times that was reviewing a Carnegie Mellon study showing that teams that prepared for interruptions did 59% better than those that didn't, even if nobody got interrupted. It's a mindset to know what you're going to do when something gets interrupted. We had one company, one of our venture companies, that the team never got half of what they planned done in a sprint because they were always interrupted. I said, well, here's a simple way to solve that. First of all, you put a buffer in your sprint. They're taking 60 points, but they could never do even 30. I said, how many interrupts do you really need to have? They said, well, about 20 points we need for customer support. So I said, take 40. Now put the product owner in front, doing triage on anything coming in. Some things he'll put in the backlog, low priority. Some things he'll say, okay, that can go to the next sprint, that's later. This is really important, the customer's down, do it now. Put the product owner in front. And then, if the buffer overflows, your team is going to be like your laptop, buffer overflow. It's going to crash. So if the buffer overflows, it needs to be an automatic abort. You go into sprint planning immediately, you replan, and you advise management that dates slip. They had failed 18 sprints in a row. How many aborts do you think they had in the next 18 sprints after implementing this? 0. This causes the whole company to self-organize to prevent aborts. That has the effect of always leaving empty space in the buffer. That has the effect of tending to have to finish early, which has the effect of pulling forward on the backlog, which makes the velocity start to trend. All these patterns are synergistic, have synergistic side effects that reinforce one another. Now, the capstone on this, I learned from a lean expert in France. He came to a training course. He was the leader of the Lean Six Sigma team for one of the biggest French companies. And he just came by to see what is this Scrum thing. And every break, he was all over me. He would say, you're not teaching these people the Scrum. They'll never be productive if you don't teach them the Scrum. And I said, well, what do you mean by Scrum? They need to use Scrum to make Scrum better. Well, how would they do that? They take the Kaizen and put it in the backlog as top priority. What's the Kaizen? The Kaizen is the top process improvement identified in the retrospective. You put it in the backlog with acceptance tests as top priority, and at the sprint review, you evaluate whether it's done. So I said, wow, that's interesting. I'm starting up a new Scrum team back in Boston. I went back to Boston and I said, we're going to Scrum the Scrum in the Scrum team. So there's a pattern on that. All these patterns are at scrumplop.org. We're going to put the Kaizen in the backlog. It's going to help us finish early. It's going to pull more backlog. It's going to increase yesterday's weather. I had a team of 2 that had been running for over a year, weekly sprints. So these are all week sprints. We doubled the size of the team here. They started running at 40 points. We started scrumming the scrum. Within 3 sprints, they were 120 points. And this is 2 years of data after that. They increased 10% sprint to sprint for 2 years running. Notice those low points. That's where the company is shut down between Christmas and New Year's. These guys get more done on vacation than they used to get done. That makes the management a lot happier. So, we're at a tipping point for Scrum. You know, Scrum has kind of reached a threshold where all of a sudden, boom, there are 30 times as many Scrum jobs open. Somebody told me the latest Gartner report says by the end of, what year is it? 2012, 80% of companies will be doing Agile or being implementing. It's game over for waterfall guys. But that doesn't mean the waterfall mentality is erased. We got a lot of work to do. We're starting to see companies like Valve, gaming company. This is an extreme case. No management. They said they hired a senior manager from IBM many years ago. They kept him around for a few months, but they got rid of him. People come into work, they say, figure out something cool, see if you can get a couple other people to help you, and ship it. That's your mission. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. Teams, you need to deal with performance problems. There isn't any management to do performance appraisals. We're writing a book on Scrum now. It's really 80% of it is Scrum outside of software, so a lot of it is about all these running Scrum across organizations. So we interviewed the guys that have been at Valve for a long time. They said last year we had a big problem. We had about 16 people that were telling people what to do, assigning tasks to people. And we didn't know what to do because we had no management to fix it. So we had to get all the really old heads together. We got in a room and we figured out, we got to go fire those people. And they went out and got rid of them, but they said that was a process failure. So one of their major goals, corporate goals this year, is to figure out how to enhance their process so they never have to pull the trigger like that again. We'll see what they come up with. But that's kind of the extreme case. Where people usually start is the Toyota model, where you have a strong functional management. You know, at Toyota, the guy that builds engines has all the best engine guys. He hires them, he trains them, he motivates them, he keeps the bench stacked. But as soon as they're going to build the car, they're assigned to cross-functional teams. That's usually where people start. Where they're going to wind up is like Valve, okay? In the middle, we had a person that used to be CIO of Salesforce.com. In the middle, you have companies like Salesforce.com and Spotify. I'll talk a little bit about later. Here's another indicator of the tipping point, okay? Gartner Group said, 2012 planning guide, it's game over for waterfall. Get rid of it. The business is fed up. Get agile. You need to improve your cross-functional, cross-competency collaboration. You've got to get that tools usable. You've got to start detecting with that management program. So Gartner Group is saying, game over, and that they're broadcasting this to every senior management team on the planet. It's game over. Even more significant, and this is what's driving most of the 600,000 jobs. A bill was introduced in Congress a couple of years ago that required the Department of Defense to be agile for all IT projects. Today, it is against the law to run a Department of Defense IT project that's not agile. We're waiting to see the first contractor that gets sent to jail. You can read all about it. Go to those links, read all about it. They've essentially embedded the Agile Manifesto in the government regulations. What's that?
The Senate can't do this?
The Senate can't do this. You know, there are 3 countries where people have told me the country should be run with Scrum. The UK, Belgium, and Sweden. We've even been asked to come in to run a city in Sweden with Scrum. They said governments will run much better with Scrum. So what's happening is Scrum is starting to change the organizational structures of the companies. We're seeing, like one of the companies we're working with now is Autodesk. They've been doing Scrum for 6 years. They said, okay, we're doing Scrum okay, but it's not enough. It's getting more competitive. Our biggest threats are the startups. As soon as any of them get good, we buy them. But we're afraid of Google, an AutoCAD Google. We cannot be slow and compete with that. So they brought in a new Agile coach, at a very senior level in the company, brought us in, we retrained everybody, including the management. It's one of the best management trainings I've seen. The agenda was, Jeff, how do we change this company? How do we change performance appraisals? How do we change space? How do we change HR? How do we change bonus plans? The management is ready to change anything. Okay, that's a good management team that's trying to figure that out. Now, organizational change is not enough. As we start to work more and more with hardware companies, the hardware guys are interested to work with, we find that the hardware guys that can execute well have to have a good component architecture. And they need to do acceptance test-driven development. We've known that in software, but a lot of the software teams are not doing it. The good news about hardware is you can't function without it. So we're going in and starting training the hardware guys, and then we're going back to the software guys and saying, you need to fix your whole way of doing software. So engineering practices are important. So here's kind of the middle way of companies, software.com, Spotify. Spotify has what they call squads, they're Scrum teams. And they have a PO. Each team can deploy at the end of every sprint without breaking any other team's code. And they do. The management is set up so they have these chapters, they call them, like the manager of QA owns the QA strategy, tooling, and training across all the teams. You have somebody that owns architecture, and so forth. So the management is running across the side, but they don't manage the people. They make sure they have the right people, the right training, the right strategy for the functional areas. We're seeing some really big implementations. Microsoft, as I said, has a 3,000-person development team. The most interesting example I saw recently, we did an executive workshop in Wiesbaden, Germany, and we had all CTOs and CEOs in the room. And one guy stood up and said, I'm the Scrum Pope of SAP. So the whole group said, get up there and draw us your organization, how does it work? And he said, well, we have, he said, not quite 1,000, a little over 800 teams. And he said, what we've done in the last couple of years, we said, our problem is not managing engineering, our problem is the product sucks. So we took 2/3 of the management, we made them product owners. We did need some management help with hiring the right people, firing people, assessing people, training people, motivating people. So the remaining 1/3 of the managers, we gave them each 100 people to worry about. Too many to micromanage. That's the way SAP development runs today. Pretty radical implementation. With Microsoft, I've been a consultant to them as the Team Foundation's server group, which actually is 8 product groups, everything from Visual Studio, parts of Office are in there, all their build system, test system, project management system. You know, they used to do 18-month releases. By 2008 with Scrum, they got it down to a few months. Bugs dropped from 30,000 bugs down to 3,000 bugs. We know the right number of bugs today. In your bug tracking system, there should be no more than 1 bug per developer. If Microsoft can do it, you can do it. Does anybody have that? That's the number. We see in our best teams, that's the number. Yeah, we got a few people in here that are there. I got a note a few months ago from the head technical guy at Microsoft. He said, Jeff, we've gone to 3-week deployments. At the end of every 3 weeks, we deploy a new release of all Microsoft development products. Not Windows, they're still an interesting problem.
The virus.
I was at EMC a couple of weeks ago. They asked me to come in and have a kind of an agile meeting like this. I said, well, if you did the same as Microsoft in Hopkinton, where I was, they have 3,000 people doing Scrum. You should be able to at least double the productivity of the teams. Microsoft has done better than that. And that would be $385 million a year in cost savings. Not to mention, much better product. Okay? So you guys should get cracking on this. So, Scrum gives the capability for people to take back their lives. It gives them the capability for being responsible and owning their work and deciding how they're going to do their work. And it allows them to pursue happiness, you know, not just getting out of here at 5 o'clock because the work will always suck, to actually make the work environment a place that they really enjoy working. And so I've worked with some really great teams, and they are like, this is a rugby team winning the World Cup, the All Black. I worked with a company recently that is over 100 years old. It is a hardware company that builds the machines that put the dates on all the food and medicine, the expiration dates. And in 100 years, they've never delivered a product without so many defects. They had to have a special task force operate for 6 months after shipping to quell the outraged customers. 3 months ago, they shipped a product with no bugs. 3 months later, a single customer has reported a bug. Now, they were motivated by that because they came to a happy hour at Scrum Inc., and it just so happened they were using the space where the Bruins hockey team had just been awarded the Stanley Cup. And so the hockey teams got out, and we walked in, the Stanley Cup is still there for our happy hour. So here's the guys from the printer company standing around the Stanley Cup. And they were so motivated by that, they went out and delivered that perfect product, and they gave the team, the engineering team, and us, what they call the Scrum Cup. It looks just like that. And needless to say, we're all really happy about that. So, that's my message for tonight. I think I'm roughly on time. How are we doing, Stacy?
Perfect.
And we want to do some questions and discussion, or?
Yeah. Questions? Can I get the runners?
Jeff, a lot of what you've talked about today to get real success in the use of Scrum involves a transformation of companies. I think you've made a clear point that those companies that can go to a Scrum model from the perspective of management as well are the ones that are most successful. First of all, let me ask, did I get that right? Was that part of your message?
The message is that it makes it a lot easier, but remember, Easel, the first Scrum team, did not have that. They had a traditional management.
Okay, the reason I'm asking this is because you had a little brief aside earlier about SAFe. And looking at what SAFe does, that seems to deal with the traditional governance, portfolio, program components that more traditional companies adhere to. So I really would like to hear your opinion as to what you think about that, considering how difficult it is to do organizational change at a high management, C-level management level.
Well, I've known Dean Leffingwell for some time. We had dinner in Berlin a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about SAFe. He seems to be getting some good traction for that. And if you have a traditional management structure that doesn't know what to do, then SAFe provides some good guidelines to get them started. My only comment to Dean is I view Scrum like a SWAT team. I mean, in our Scrum book, we have the special forces. They operate. They really operate as a Scrum. And they wouldn't like the notion of being called SAFe. And at scale, you know, being a fighter pilot, John Boyd, the greatest fighter pilot that ever lived, taught the Marines their strategy. And when the Marines go in on an amphibious assault, which is what I view Scrum scale, they wouldn't want to be called SAFe either. So I think SAFe is maybe a good way to start for traditional companies when they're starting off. But when they become a valve, it's not going to be SAFe anymore. That would be my only. Yeah.
Hello, Jeff. Excellent presentation. Thank you. I can't tell you how many people or how many vendors sell me or entice me with Scrum training. And, you know, I also belong to a group which routinely, severely critiques bad Agile. So I was wondering, what were you doing to try to make sure that the training that is now coming out is going to be good Agile?
Well, you know, the first thing I did personally is that I said, we're not training people well enough. I mean, it's never going to be perfect because people run out of there and they do really weird things, no matter what you're told. So there's, you know, Yahoo did a survey a couple of years ago after they had about 150 teams booted up. They were doing these surveys on happiness. They found that 17% of the people were not happy with Scrum. So HR went in and they did a special analysis of these people. And they found that these people hated the cafeteria. They hated management. They were the nihilists, you know. And they hated Scrum. So they decided, you know, that's the way it is. You're going to have 17% of people that are going to get it wrong no matter what you train them. But the other 83%, if we had better training, they would have better Agile teams. So the core of my Scrum training is to show them, since most of the people I get are people already doing Scrum. There are people that come to me that have already been certified for 3 years, 6 years, and they come into my training. And so my job is to get them to do good Agile, no matter how good they are doing better. And so we really focused on that in the training. And I said, you know, I say it's not enough to know the framework. You know, great teams, their technique is different. If you want to be a winning team, you have to train on the standard plays over and over and over again. Everybody has to know what to do and execute it immediately. Here are the standard plays. If you do this, I guarantee your production will double, or you get your money back for this course. I've never had to give anybody any money back. I've had people try to get their money back. People have complained bitterly. You I went back and I got everything tested into a sprint. I thought I was going to get my money back, but the production doubled. It's a system dynamic that happens every time. It has nothing, at one level it has nothing to do with the people. It's the way things work.
Jeff, this is Paul. Thank you for this morning. And on managing change, there was this moment in this presentation where you kind of said, like, cut it. It's like, next person, grab the top of the backlog item, do it, even if not their skill set. And there can be a lot of resistance to that. Management might say that person will take longer, or something like that. My approach has been more like letting teams fail and say, this might be the pattern. You don't want to do that, go do it. Go do whatever you want to do, and then measure their failure. But I wonder if you can say more about managing change.
Well, people have different styles. Our chief product owner, who I've trained, he's going to become a Scrum trainer. So he's been training with other trainers around the world. And he went down to Washington and trained with one of our best partners, who's basically training government contractors and stuff like that. He came back and he says, they're down there training the government contractors and got safe Scrum. We're teaching aggressive Scrum. So, yeah, I'm teaching a style that's different because my goal is to win, not just to implement Scrum. And so it's a matter of style. I do let people fail, but there's certain things I don't let them do. I come from a background where I've been head of engineering in 11 different companies. It's only in the last couple of years I've started running around doing this training thing. And so in my companies I would say, we're going to let the teams decide how to do things, but there's certain things that are like your kid. If they start to run into the street, no, you can't run in the street. I'm going to let you climb little trees, but that big one where you can break your neck, you're not going to climb it. We're going to set those as engineering practices that are standard. So I think as a head of engineering, you're a CTO, right? You need to decide, what needs to be kind of, what's the sandbox they can play in. And the investors have really, coached me on that. And they've said, our startups, even though they're late stage startups, they got a bunch of kids out of university, they've been coding for 3 years. They know nothing about what you spent 30 years learning. You've got to tell them. Maybe not make them do it, but make it absolutely clear to them. These engineering practices are good, and those will cause you big problems. It needs to be crystal clear. And they said, in certain ones, we will enforce that at the board level. Continuous integration, automated testing, and code reviews of peer programming. We're going to enforce that at the board level. We're not letting a Scrum in our companies run without it, because it's going to cost us too much money. So I think you have to decide, what's the balance you've got to strike. At the U.S. Post Office, they had a product, PMO. They had waterfall guys that didn't want to do Scrum. He decided, Scrum is a lot better to have volunteers, but this is the post office. It's going to be mandatory they're doing Scrum. It's either our way or the highway at the post office. They decided they had to do that. Otherwise, they'd suck until the end of time. You have to make your decisions, and draw the line in the sand. I'm basically like, I used to wrap it up. Okay, we got to wrap it up. My philosophy, I used to coach sports teams when I was in college, and I got into the Air Force. I was always coaching sports teams, and I brought that training into Scrum. And my goal is to win, and I want to really coach the teams and show them where they're going to fail much more aggressively than some Scrum coaches will. Let's let them screw up the sprint and learn from that. I'm more likely to say, if you do that, the sprint is going to fail. Then stand back. Then they blow up and they say, okay, they do it. How many times do you want to fail like that without changing your behavior? And then about the third sprint, this is where I get some differences with Google. About the third sprint of that, I say, this is unprofessional behavior. You've screwed up 3 times for the same reason and you're not changing your behavior. You're an unprofessional developer. I think that's unacceptable. Some of our companies, I told people, go get another job. You need to go get another job. We're not about just failing sprints every time for the same reason because you refuse to do basic engineering. Okay. So that's my wrap.
So a lot of you may or may not know about this, and we announced it quietly on our meetup site, but when it came to this meetup, Jeff had planned to come out here, and plans changed, and he was no longer coming out to the West Coast. So what happened was, I asked the organizers, what should we do? And so for the first time ever, they decided, hey, let's charge for the meetup. So we charged for this meetup. It's our first time doing it, and we're grateful for you sponsoring this meetup. I think if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to pay for the flights and get travel taken care of, and take care of some of the food and beverage that was made available. So thank you for helping sponsor this. Thank you. And as far as the gratitude, hey Robbie, can you bring that up here? So the Silicon Valley Agile Leadership Network got you something, makes us think of you. A little rugby ball. There's going to be rugby out in the back lawn out there after some wine. So thank you. So with that, we have a few announcements. Okay, we're going to buzz through these. I wanted to announce the Bay ALN meetup next Tuesday. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah.
Yes, next Tuesday. Tuesday, 7/23. Where's it going to be? Is it MuleSoft? MuleSoft. So look up Bay ALN on the meetup site. You'll get everything. So that's in San Francisco. The next SB ALN meetup is next month on 8/13. Okay. And before I go too far, does anybody want to sign up for the raffle that didn't sign up, that missed the front door with Mary? Anybody? All right, because we're going to pick the CSM class. So if you want to, jam up here, and then with Jeff, and we're going to do the raffle in just a second. I just want to make sure people fill this out. Going on with the rest of the announcements. This is kind of a new thing that we're starting. Agile Camp. It's coming fall of 2013. What is it? Anybody been to Product Camp? Any Product Camp people? All right, so we're going to do something like Robbie's wearing a Product Camp t-shirt. We're going to have to change that to Agile Camp. We're going to do an Agile Camp coming up here in fall 23, so keep an eye on that. If you're interested in volunteering, please email me. My email is up there, and I'd be happy to give you more information about volunteering and give you more information about the program. We'll send it out to you guys. Okay.
Agile Open California is also in October.
Agile Open California, October. Do you have a date?
October
14th to 15th. I was going to announce it.
Okay, so I wanted to present this, and then we're going to go. So a couple things that haven't been announced in the industry yet. So this is the Scaled Agile big picture. Some of you who are into SAFe, any SAFe people here? I'm SAFe certified. There's a few of you guys. So this is the version 2.5. If you haven't seen it before, it's here. It's actually in the back. That big picture is the version 2.5, and the version that shows up on this plastic thing, this is 2.5. So this is the brand new version that's out. It hasn't been announced yet, but Dean gave us the green light to go forward. And there's a few of the changes up there. I'll post this on the meetup site so you can have it. And if you haven't taken a SAFe class, there is a SAFe class coming up. I think it's August 20th. And if you want a discount, there's some discounts available. There's one on the meetup site. There's one actually on this plastic thing. So if you want a discount for that. And moving on to the Scrum Guide. So the Scrum Guide hasn't changed since 2011, and Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland collaborating on that have made some changes. So those changes are now available for your review, and if you picked up the Scrum Guide here, it's on the last page. So take a look at it, read through it. formal announcements will be coming out when Ken and Jeff coordinate on that, but I think you're one of the first people to see it.
My mic is not.
Hey, can you turn on Jeff's mic? Can you turn on his mic?
Most of the changes are minor in the Scrum Guide. They're evolutionary changes. We've eliminated grooming and gone to refinement. We've clarified the sprint goal, things like that. But there was a really significant change, and that is the questions in the daily meeting. I said, Ken, the first Scrum team did not have daily meetings like most of these teams, where I was working on this yesterday, I'm still working on it today, and I have no impediments. And you go around the room, it's a status report that nobody likes. That's not the way the first Scrum team worked. They collaborated in that meeting so that they could work better. So the questions are being changed. We've actually tried this out now for a year with teams around the world, and it changes the dynamic. It's not the magic bullet. It does significantly change the dynamic. Questions are, what did I do yesterday to help the team move to the sprint goal? What am I going to do to help the team hit the sprint goal? Is there anything I see that's blocking either me or the team from getting to the end of the sprint done with all features complete, tested, and usable by the end user? If you've done nothing to address those three things, we don't want to hear about it in the daily meeting. So that's a significant change.
Outstanding. So you guys heard it first here. I'm sure there'll be a lot of buzz about that in the next few weeks. So thank you, Jeff, for sharing that with us. We very much appreciate it. And I think that was it for the announcements. A couple things. PayPal. Anybody from PayPal? I think Heinz wanted to say something. Heinz, is Heinz still here? Oh, there you are. Did you want me to say something on your behalf? All right, so yeah, so take a look at the board. PayPal's hiring program managers. So if you're interested, please take a look at that. Anything else from PayPal? All right, moving on, we'll go to Solutions IQ. Monica Diap is with Solutions IQ.
Thank you. Hi, I work for Solutions IQ, and of course, our marketing wanted me to say everything about our training, services, etc. But that's not what I want to say. I want to say this is a testimony example of Scrum and Agile works outside of software development. If you walk into our office today, you will see, besides the Agile delivery team, the taskbar on the wall, you will see marketing Kanban boards, you will see recruiters doing daily stand-ups, you will see retrospective of our financial department. So it does work outside of software development. I have an announcement. Can I make one? Okay, I started a startup meetup called Lean Coffee. If you've been to one of those, you know it's not a formal meeting. It's about anyone who want to get together. And the first one's coming in San Jose, south of here. But as part of the Lean, one of the 7 ways of Lean is transportation. So, I would encourage you to propose a meetup in your area. Set Sunnyvale, Mountain View, Palo Alto, etc., for Lean Coffee.
Thank you, Monica. And Monica is one of the founders with this group, so she knows how to start stuff up. And then the line technology, you guys want to say anything?
Thanks. We provided the wine today, so I know that was big supporters. Thank you, Jeff. You taught my CSM class about 6 or 7 years ago, so I still have lasting memories of some of the stuff you said there. Anyway, Bernie Clark here and Bernie actually works at PayPal. We are part of Align Technology, and Garth Andrews isn't here, but he's also a member of Align Technology, and we do consulting and training in Agile. We're all SAFe certified, SPC certified, so one of the raffle prizes is a free seat to our next leading SAFe class. So hopefully get your tickets in here and you can get those. Also, we're co-sponsors of the SPC course that's coming up in Silicon Valley on August 20th also. And Stacy also mentioned that already. So anyway, that's it. Thanks, Stacy.
All right. And then let's see. I don't know if you want to mention anything from Scrum Inc., but you guys are good. All right. With that, we're gonna switch some things up a little bit. We're gonna start the roadie first. We're gonna have the retrospective, and after we complete the retrospective, we're going to have the 2 raffles. Now, there's actually 3 things, right? Remember, there's the course that Doug's giving away, then we have a CSM that's being given away, and then the last thing is the flight. Now, the flight, we're going to ask you to do the hashtag and go through that. So if you're interested in winning, I don't know how many people have actually tweeted that, but I bet you not everybody's done it, and I bet you there's a great chance for you to win a free flight. So if I was you, go there and check it out. And with that, I'll hand it over to David.
Cool. So, thank you for tolerating being held hostage for the raffle, for the roadie, but we figured it would be more effective in terms of actually getting stickies and stuff up. So what we've got here is we've got Dennis, Volker, and Stuart, who have stickies and Sharpies, and the invitation is that we would love to hear you essentially give a highlight. That's where the plus, under the plus sign, something you learned, something that was valuable to you, something you really enjoyed. That's one highlight. A delta, which is something that you think could be made different or better. And then a roadie, which is return on time invested. And that's basically a number between 1 and 10, where 1 is, oh, this sucked. And 10 is, this was totally awesome, best thing since sliced bread. So the invitation is we're going to do a little swarming, and we're going to wander up to the wall, grab a sticky note, or more than one. You're invited to do at least one, and if you want to, you can do more. And the sticky notes, there's sufficient pads, and there's 200 Sharpies over there, so there's enough for everybody to sort of do this. We're going to make a little area right there, so you guys in front of the wall got to move your chairs a little bit just to make enough room to swarm. Yeah, and this is going to actually 8 minutes or less. So this is actually an Agile swarming activity. You're on. Go.
See you, man.
I'm David, by the way. Chuck, nice to meet you.
So you're going to have
So there's a change in plans. Keep doing the roadie, and we're going to do the raffle because we're concerned that people are going to bail. So you got to pay attention to 2 things. Sorry, this is multitasking. That's bad, but.
All right. Hey Jeff, I'm going to interrupt you for a quick second. Hey, I'm going to have Jeff pick a name. This is going to go for the leading safe class with Align Technologies.
That was a wrong move. What they're going to do after some time.
Is Kelly Kim here? Kelly, come on in. Come on down.
And then I work in the whole so
Congratulations, Kelly Kim. Leading safe class. All right, the next one is a CSM course taught by Jeff McKenna. Yeah, Jeff McKenna. Hey, is Randy still here? Randy? Do you want another CSM from Jeff McKenna? All right, congratulations, Randy. All right, so we're going to do the Golden Gate Bridge tomorrow or tonight, later, thank you. So at the end of every meetup, guys, listen up. At the end of every meetup, we encourage you to do one thing, and the one thing is to continue to network, but not just network, but there's a LinkedIn app. You can get your LinkedIn app, get that going, and LinkedIn with at least 2 people. I don't know if Brian Drummond's still here, but there's Brian. Brian is the Agile coach for LinkedIn, so if you've got questions for Brian, head over there, but at least link in with him and see if that's possible, and link in with others. So get at least 2 more LinkedIns. Thank you, and good night, everybody. Here's Dave. He's going to wrap it up.
So I just want to make sure, since I brought 200 Sharpies, that I end up with 200 Sharpies at the end. And the sticky notes, too. I brought $100 worth of sticky notes, so please return those when you're done doing the roadie.
All right, we have some people buying raffle tickets for the books. I have 2 books up, so Jeff, 2 more picks. So you gotta keep busy. Yep. We need the number. The number is 561007. 007? And 002. 002. 007. 002.
So there's one other announcement which I forgot to make. Agile Open Northern California is an open space conference for Agilists. It's happening October 14th and 15th in Berkeley, half a block from BART. So I will be sending out an announcement and the link to the Eventbrite site, but if you have interest, please sign up. It's very inexpensive and it's a wonderful experience. If you're curious about it, please feel free to ask me or Amy.
We are starting.
Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, spend 2 minutes with Asia, works on Biz and Dev. Really close to it's always going to be always like, and I'm just going to run through it.
I feel like the client right now.